Tour for All, Stage 3. This is the first one that has a lot of climbing, so glad I got a decent video of it. I actually did the Stage 1 race with the team, which was super fun, but video turned out really choppy. I think sometimes these really big groups, which today it looks like we got 80 something. I think the other Tour for All I did had over 100. So I just got to make sure I have my settings correct, and I do today. So this one turned out a little better. One minor problem you'll see later, but I think the frame rate looks good. And 20 seconds to go, losing the fleece jacket. So I got it really cold in the room. I maxed out the AC and crank it up with 3 seconds to go. That's been my go-to move recently, is 3 seconds to go, kind of hit the power. I might have gone a little hard a little early there because you saw 400 before I was really moving. That's probably too much. So this start is gonna be freaking can I say, I don't know. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be real hard. um so this loop, 2 kilometers, and you'll notice I switched it to kilometers here. Part of what I was doing on the start line there was pulling up on my phone, on my bars, the map for this course on Zwift Power so that I actually know where the climbs are. First climb is 2K in, and the map I found is in K, not miles, so I swapped my stuff over to kilometers, just for this ride, just so I can use that correctly. So I know it's going to be fast and furious off the start because Zwift races always are, but I also know that we're about to hit a huge climb. So trying to sort of balance that and not get caught out, definitely not be behind any splits, but also not overdo it. I want to save as much as I can because I know we got a 5-minute climb. It's got some sections well over 10%. Which those are the spots that you're really gonna lose it. If you're if you're not really on top of it, you can lose a lot of time very quickly, and there's almost no draft benefit. So you really gotta stay on through those sections if you want to stay in the group. Because when you come over, the other thing about the profile of this course is it's not like you climb up and then it flattens out. You climb up and then you're going straight back down. And really, if there's a group on the downhill and you're not in the group, it's really hard to come back because the speeds get so high that a big group, just one person has to be pedaling, a decent amount the whole time, and the whole group is going to go a lot faster. The drafting benefit gets kind of multiplied. So one thing that's annoying about like Tour for All and some of these bigger races is they put everybody in one jersey like this. It's not gonna lie, it's pretty annoying. It's hard to work out who's who. And here's the climb. But I'm hoping this video, it's gonna sort out pretty quickly and then it'll be very obvious who's who. I think the frame rate should get a little bit better once that happens as well. Looks like, yeah, we're sorting out. So I don't really know. I know there's probably, from looking at Zwift Power, there's probably about 10 guys that are sort of on or above my level, at least that are on Zwift Power. And in my mind, if you're not on Zwift Power, it doesn't count because you're not really submitting. It's like if you were racing but you're not submitting yourself to doping testing or something. So that was sort of the initial split, and then we got a little surge here where it flattened out. A lot of guys, I think, smartly used that little flat section to get some momentum and kick up that next very steep ramp. You can watch the grade in the top right hand corner. So right now we're on this 5%, and I'm really just trying to, on these slighter grades, make sure I'm sticking the wheel and kind of use the draft as much as I possibly can. That said, I'm well over threshold here. I mean, I'm doing almost 6 watts a kilo, 5.5, pretty regularly just to stay in. But every time we hit a flat, I'm gonna try to do as little as I can, maybe get a little bit of recovery if possible. But I'm also not gonna let any gaps go out. And you can see we're strung out single file here, which single file generally means we're going pretty hard. You're going pretty good. And I don't really know when the elastic is going to snap here. Like, I know that it is. I know that this is going to continue to get broken down. If you look at the chart on the top right, you can see where the whole race is single file as far as you can see. Looks like we had 81 starters, and we're pretty much all lined up. So the distance from the front to the back is pretty huge. And there's one guy off the front up there. It's weird. It's like, I don't want to say I'm not too worried about it, but it is like, I probably don't want to be with him. I probably want to be in this group because, like I said, we're gonna go down the hills faster in a group. There's large flat sections on this course. I just know that either that guy's probably gonna be putting down a pace that is not sustainable, or he's like wasting bullets. So, or he's putting down a pace that's sustainable for him and not for me, which, you know, I don't want to get myself up there, get popped, and then just get rolled by this group. So we're still kind of on the ramp here, and this climb is crazy. It really flattens out and punches again back up to 10%. So I do have the profile on my phone, on my bars. I've actually got 3 devices going here. I've got the computer that I'm running Zwift on. Then I've got a tablet that has the companion app on it. And use that mostly just to hit my power-ups and stuff. And it's kind of like a giant Garmin head unit or something. And then I also, on my bars, have my phone, which I got music in my ears playing off the phone, and I've got the Zwift Power course profile and rider list pulled up in front of me, so I can glance down at that whenever I, if I have to question whether somebody maybe has this or not. I can see, if there's a black A next to their name, they're like an A+ rider. So yeah, that guy probably can hold decent power. This right here, so tough. So I know that we're coming over the knuckle of the climb here. I know it flattens out around 4K, and these 2 guys are kind of sneaking off the front, and I know if they can get together, yes, I stand up and sprint just to make sure to close that gap. I say sprint, I mean 500 watts for a second, but still, after a climb like that where it was pretty crazy, pretty hard that whole time. I'm begging for a truck power up right here, and I get nothing. So a truck would have been huge if I could have gotten a truck before this downhill and then really sat in. That would have been very helpful, but it is what it is. So I am thinking that this group, I think we're away. Like, I'm looking at the map on the right, and it looks like everything's splintered behind us, but none of us are really rolling super hard. I guess I say that we're rolling pretty good, but this group still catches us, still highly motivated, a lot of them popping power-ups. So now we're going. This is, I mean, you can tell just by sort of the camera got whiplash there. The camera in Zwift, if you're, depending on what camera you're on, it sort of reacts to the speed, and that zoom out you saw there was because of how fast we were going. So I'm hitting the super tuck right here, trying to take advantage and see if I can do that. I don't know, maybe I should have done it earlier. I just got a little super tuck, and then I had to start pedaling again before it flattens out, because I don't want to get caught off the back. But it's amazing in a Zwift race where you don't get any time where you're not pedaling, just to get a little bit feels really good. It's a lot different from outside, where, I mean, in an outdoor race, a lot of times in a crit, the person who wins is the person who spent the most time doing 0 watts, because they're finding really efficient lines through the corners, and they're coasting where they should, and they're punching where they should. On Zwift, you don't normally get that, so I'm trying to get better at using the arrow tuck where I can, and figuring out how soon I have to stop pedaling to get it, and how soon I have to start pedaling again to not get dropped from the group. So we got one guy who's kind of dangling off the front here, and my thought is this is it. This is clearly a really motivated group. I sort of glanced at Zwift Power, and I'm seeing a lot of the names that are the big dogs on the list here. I know there's a lot of motivated guys who are capable. So I don't think it's probably going to split until we get down into the actual Central Park part of this course. It's pretty flat, pretty straight until then, and it's just harder to get away on this type of, 0%, 1%, -1%, and where you can just see the group up the road for so far. So I'm not really worried about that guy who's kind of dangling off, and I'm just trying to get as much rest as you can. I'm also glancing down at the profile. I'm scrolling through to sort of see where the next little punches are, and I'm seeing that there's a lot of little ones once we get down into the park, but there's nothing major until I think about 18 or 20K in. So this is my time to try and ride as efficiently as possible, which I say that I'm around or over my threshold a lot just to sit in here. So this is a fast group. This is a hard group. Just for reference, I haven't done a ramp test in a long time, but I believe my threshold power is probably somewhere around 290-ish, maybe 295 on a good day. And that kind of squares with what I see in my Zwift Power results. Although I'll say Zwift Power bases that on 20-minute power, and that's kind of my worst zone. And down goes the green screen. So I've got a new fan setup going on, and I think the fans are just like punishing the green screen, which I'm using kind of a heavy quilt for that, so that it's not getting blown around by the fans. I need to just buy a legit green screen setup, and then you can see the quilt I've tacked to the window to keep it from try and keep that light to a minimum. I need to get some legit blackout curtains, but I'm just gonna roll with this. You can see into the pain cave a little bit. You can see like the corner of my Roland guitar amp behind me. And it is what it is. We just have this view now. So I'm trying to ride as efficiently as possible and stay in this group. I'm hoping the fireworks aren't going to happen quite yet. Checking behind. And in that interim period there, looks like Kay Powell's, which part of me is wondering if that's Kevin Powell's, the cyclocross racer. I'm going to have to do some research and find out if maybe that's the case. That would be crazy if it was. If you're a cross fan, Kevin Powell's is that's a big name. That's and the power. Honestly, it would only make sense if it was that Kay Powell's, because you can see his power is just completely nuts. I mean, I'm doing a lot just to stay in this group, and he's powering away from us with one other guy. If you watch the chart on the right side here, normally it says Zwifters nearby. It just says the name of the race when you're in a race, but when I'm closer to the front of the group, you can see the gap to them, and it's pretty much consistently going out, and they're pretty much consistently, it looks like, taking pulls at over 6 watts a kilo and then sitting in around like high 4s, low 5s, which is completely bonkers, especially given that for Zwift, this is a pretty long race. This one is, I think it takes us about 50 minutes, 5-0, which that's like the length of an outdoor race, if you're like a crit or something. So I mean, to hold that kind of power just off the front, hammering it out for that amount of time is pretty incredible. So I say all that to say I don't think it was a mistake not to go with them. And now we're on this punchy part. I said I knew there wouldn't be anything until we got onto the actual Central Park loop. All these roads I'm pretty familiar with, partially because there's not a ton here. It's a pretty small loop, and then I've done a team time trial on it. I've ridden it several times, so I kind of know this is going to be pretty up and down, and it's not to a point where I can really like look at the profile and be ready for all those little kicks. I just have to really stay on top of it and just looking. I probably even can't be looking at a separate screen at all. I need to just focus completely on what's going on, because I also don't know who's going to try and break this group down a little bit more. I'm pretty sure that we got a couple guys. Well, I don't really feel like I should be in that front group. I feel like if they're going to go that hard, that's kind of not my group. That's a different pace. This seems like my group, but I feel like there's probably a couple guys in here who are feeling like they have missed out, like they missed the move, and they're thinking I should be up there. So I'm kind of hoping that those guys are going to take over and really do the work to get us back up to that group up the road. But I'm also not married to that idea. If they don't go for it, we'll just deal with that, and we'll be racing from this group. I want to say, I'm not sure if it's happened yet or not. I did notice at least one cone of shame in this, so that's another thought I'm having is I don't know if those guys up the road are gonna trip the sort of like anti-cheating algorithm stuff, and that's always a possibility that they would one of them would exceed whatever, either the 5-minute or the 20-minute sort of reality check limits, and get popped. So what you really don't want to do, if you're me, is put in some sort of extreme move, get stuck in no man's land, and then the people you're chasing disappear off the map before you get to them. So I've kind of decided this is my group. I'm going to live and die by this group. I also think I know that I'm one of the punchier riders and one of the better sprinters in this group. So all these little hills, I'm not super worried about getting dropped off. I just know that I need to be watching. I am worried about saving it for the big one because I don't know who has it. So we got another big hill. We got a small one at 18K, I think, and then we got a really big one at I'm not sure, but I know that we're going basically up the other side of the one we just did. The one we just went up and down, we're doing that in reverse. We're going up that steep descent. We're coming down what we went up. So I know that one's going to be probably around 5 minutes. It's going to be really hard, and there are some guys in here with a bigger watt per kilo FTP than me, so I'm also looking around the group. I guess this is a good time to talk gear. See, I'm on the orange bike here. This is the Cannondale Evo, which, depending on where you look and what tests they did and what all frames they tested and all that stuff, the Evo is one of the best climbing bikes in the game. And I thought that would probably be a good move since the climbs are definitely going to be decisive. And for wheels, I'm not running the most lightweight wheels I have. I have the lightweight brand wheels, which are the fastest ones in the game up the steep climbs. But those lightweight wheels are not very aerodynamic, and while this race will be lost on the climbs, it's not going to be won on the climbs. There's a lot of distance between them, and the last one is not super close to the finish. You got to go down after you go up. So those wouldn't have been a great choice, I don't think. I don't know if anyone else here is running them, but I'm actually seeing a lot of bikes and setups that are not great for climbing in this group, which has me feeling a little bit better about making sure I could make it. I'm seeing the Tron bike. I'm seeing at least one guy on the 808 Super 9, which is like the disc wheel in the back combination. Um, so I decided to kind of split the difference, which I think was the way to go. I didn't go super aero. I didn't go with like Zip 808s or something. And I didn't go super lightweight with like the lightweight brand wheels or the NV 3.4s. I'm running a Zip 404, which is, you know, sort of middle of the road on the aero and middle of the road on the climbing. And then I'm running a really lightweight frame, which from everything I've seen, the frame weight makes a lot of difference, but the frame CDA, the aerodynamic value, is not huge. So right here, we got two guys sneaking off, and I've already let two guys sneak off, so I'm not going to let the podium sneak away. So I'm going to make sure we make this split. It looks like the guy in front of me is still chasing, so I just want to make sure that we don't let that go. Yeah, and here comes the group sort of rallying around, and as long as we're chasing, I'm good. And there's two guys up there. If you watch on the right, you can see that little orange triangle. So that's the cone of shame. One of those guys just he popped the cheating algorithm. So who knows if he was I don't know, maybe he doesn't have his thing calibrated correctly, or maybe who knows what he was doing to cheat. But the filter just caught him, and he was out the back immediately. So it's good to see that that's working. And then as soon as he's gone, this other guy who was up there with him, who he was presumably kind of motor pacing, he comes right back. So I'm at this point really glad that I didn't put down a gigantic effort to get up to that group and then have the guy who was setting the pace get popped. And that's sort of been why I've been riding the way I have all day. I'm gonna try to just ride. I say conservative, but just know that this group is my group, and I don't need to be attacking, but I also don't need to be missing splits. I don't need to be chasing individual riders, but I don't need to be missing big splits, indecisive locations. I also know that we're going to be rolling up and down for a good ways here. We're about to come into a climb that could potentially be decisive around the 18K mark, 18, 19K, something like that. So it's another reason I didn't chase that move down, because you really don't want to be coming tired into a 10% climb. That can cause you some trouble. I think that was the first water I've had a chance to take. And you can see it took some water, and now I'm right back on 400 watts. Here we go. I don't know why this guy sprinted for this banner. I don't think there's anything there other than a power-up, which getting a power-up sooner is, I don't know. So I don't know if that was a cheeky attack to split the group or like what that guy was doing, but I'm definitely not going to let it go, and neither is anyone else. This group is pretty committed to staying together. Back to my setup though, I do think this was a good way to go. I think it maybe allowed me to do a little bit less than some of the other people who are running heavier setups. You can see the guy on the blue Tron bike, the Zwift concept. So that is one of the fastest bikes in the game for sure in a flat straight line, but on steep climbs it's actually not really a good bike. And maybe he's banking on the speed he's going to get on those downhills, because it is a fast bike going downhill comparatively. I'm sort of banking on being in a group on the downhills, so I'm banking on someone like him pedaling and keeping things fast, and I can just kind of sit in the draft, and my CDA value is not gonna matter quite so much, or at least that's my plan. So you can see here I'm trying to monitor the front, but I'm not trying to sit on the front. I definitely don't want to be chasing that group that's up the road. Their dots are on the map and they are way up there. So at this point I've really resigned myself to, like, hopefully maybe the cheating filter will catch them and filter them out. If not, they are just truly way stronger than I am, and I don't need to be trying to ride with them because their pace is like completely unrealistic for me. So that being said, I know that I got to race for first out of this group if I want to be on the podium, and I do. Even though there's no podium ceremony in Zwift, which maybe that's another thing they should add is like, at the end the results sheet, and then there's a virtual podium. You can snap a little podium picture. That would, I don't know, it would feel like something at least. It'd be if Mario Kart can do it. I guess Mario Kart 64 had the podiums at the end of the tournament mode or whatever, which I know people are concerned about Zwift turning into Mario Kart. I got mixed feelings on the boost mode thing. Boost mode is new. It's only in some of the beta races, but I think it's fine as long as it's not in every race, as long as you can kind of opt in or opt out, and there's plenty of options either way. It could be something that adds an interesting element to some races, but I don't want to be doing it all the time. That's one of the things I like about Zwift is there's some races with the double draft, there's some races with the with power ups, some races with no power ups. There's all kinds of different formats. I would actually like to see even more different formats. I feel like one thing they're not taking advantage of is you could do something more like the Hammer series where there's like a climb race and you're accumulating points every time up a climb or something like that. And in real life, that stuff becomes very complicated because you're riding and you're trying to do math in your head, or you have a director on the side who's doing the math and telling you in your ear. Zwift could do that math for you. So some sort of like lap-based, like track racing, like points-based racing, but it wouldn't have to be on a track. You could do it on any of these courses, and you could set the sprints, the finish lines wherever you want them, and you could set the point values however you want. I think that would be a really interesting way to race. And you could have Zwift tallying those results live, so then you can kind of see who you're racing and who you're following. Again, it does annoy me that these Tour for All, like I get that it's cool to have an exclusive kit for the event, but for the races, the rides are one thing. So the Tour for All, actually, there's Tour for All races, and there's Tour for All rides, and the rides, it makes sense to put everyone in one jersey. It has kind of a Gran Fondo vibe, and people are going hard, but it's not a race. But the race, you do kind of want to see who everyone is. And here we go. We're hitting the base of this climb. It's getting pretty steep. And my thought here is I'm going to set the pace that I want to set, especially on that 10% section, because there's not much to be gained from drafting, and then we'll just see how it goes. And as soon as I back down a little bit, this guy, our Eber, he hits it. So I'm not going to let him get a gap. I'm going to get up to him and then stay there. So on this climb, I know it's pretty much going to be like catch and kill. I'm not trying to break the group down because we got another big one coming, but I am going to try and make every split. So yeah, here these guys are getting a little gap. You can see the close the gap thing going out. I'm going to stand up and pull that right back. Also, because this climb, like some of the other ones, it's steep in sections, it's flat in other sections, and if you can stay right on the wheel on those flat sections, when it does flatten out, you can actually save some power. So I'm standing up and putting down some power to make sure I stay on these wheels. It could be argued that a better way to do it is to pace it really evenly, but given that there is some drafting benefit, I'm a pretty punchy rider. This is not a bad way to go about it. So I'm kind of thinking, ooh, maybe this is the group. It looks like we did some damage. Hard to say, but it looks like it's pretty strung out. Yeah, flip the camera around there to see if anyone's off, and there are a couple guys in trouble. I think it's really just a matter of how fast do we push it at this point, whether or not they get back on. I think most of them, yeah, it looks like everybody makes it back here because we did sit up a little bit and they kept pushing. So once again, Grupo Compacto, one more climb down, and I'm back to doing the absolute minimum I have to do to stay in this group and not let anyone get away. My thinking now is someone would be pretty foolish to attack, to put in a really hard attack between now and the big climb. And it looks like maybe this guy is, but he's not. I kind of know he's not going anywhere. This one flattens out. This is more of a roller than a climb. The next big climb is at 20 some odd K, and then we got a big descent, and then we've got flat to the finish. So my objective is I'm not going to let anyone in this group get away from me. I'm going to stay in contention for that podium, and then I'm going to save as much as I can between the descent and the sprint, because I think I've got the biggest kick of anyone in this who's made this group. I mean, I'm kind of, yeah, you can see I'm looking at my bars now, looking at Zwift power, both at the rider list and at the profile, and just checking it out, making sure. So I'm actually going to be interested upon rewatch to see who in this group makes it up the next climb, because I think the group does split down a little bit. See the guy popping the arrow power up there. It's like maybe he's making a cheeky little attack, but yeah, he lines it up single file, but we're all very motivated in this group to stay together. I'm not too worried about it. I'm content to just sit here last wheel and let everyone else chase him, because like I said, he's really not going anywhere. His arrow power up is run out, and we're closing the gap to him. So honestly, the more other people want to do that, the better, because that's just going to burn them out for that final sprint. And I've kind of resigned myself to I want to win from this group. Those two up the road, I don't know what's going on with them, but it looks like they're putting out 6 watts a kilo all day long, so they can have fun with that. Looks like we're coming back down into the actual park section now. I'm not sure if we actually touch all the way down and then go back up that climb, or if we stay on this like elevated tram road thing, and the climb is on here. So I don't think this is the beginning of the legitimate climb, but again, I'm just not going to be caught out, so I'm trying to stay more in the middle of the group than the back of the group on these, and kind of sag climb it a little bit if I'm sure that it's not the big one. Yeah, it's not. So you do have to be careful through this section. There are probably going to be some desperation moves going, and like the guy who used the arrow power up a minute ago, like this guy now looks like he's maybe trying to string the group out a little bit, and he is stringing it out, but he's not getting a gap. I'm going to be interested to see if the guys on the heavier setups make it up the next climb. I think that may be where that starts to weigh on them, literally. We will see. One thing I don't know is if that, you can see the guy who's running the Bell Javelin like Aero TT helmet. I've heard tale that makes some difference, but it's very minuscule in terms of aerodynamics. I don't know how true that is. I wonder if it has a weight penalty, because I know in real life, TT helmet like that with the big teardrop shape is going to be significantly heavier. I mean, I say significantly, a few hundred grams, but that's a lot of weight to have on your head also, because you got to support that with your body. So I don't know. Interesting to know if Zwift factors that in into the weight calculations. So right here, I'm trying to just get comfortable and get settled, because I think this next climb is coming up at 24K, something like that. Something right around there. So we're kind of jockeying for position. I definitely don't want to hit the climb in the back of the group, because sometimes you get a sticky draft. If the guy in front of you is letting the gap go out and you're only doing, like, say he's doing 5 watts a kilo and you're doing 5.5, it'll keep you there for an extra couple seconds because the differential is not huge. So while that is happening for a few seconds, someone who's really going full stick can get a little gap. And on these punchy little rolling hills, those gaps can stick. And I'm kind of daring someone else to chase this down right here. I'm not going to totally lay off, but I'm not going to totally chase it because, again, this climb is coming up soon, coming up fast. And here it is. Yeah, I knew it was right around 24. So I think this is the beginning. I'm not sure what they want to call the actual beginning, but yep, 15%. So that's the first ramp. And I'm going up over 350, and I'm gonna pretty much keep it there. This hurts. I don't know if you can tell by how much I've been grimacing in this race, but I was sort of surprised how hard this race was and how many strong guys there are. I kind of thought that this might be more like the Richmond Classics race I did, where the climbs are just absolutely ballistic and then the rest of it we roll pretty easy. But it's been pretty hard the whole time. We've been going fast, and then without any recovery, these climbs really hurt me. That's one thing. As a cyclocross racer, you learn to, not even learn to, you physically adapt to getting recovery in the very, very short sections where you can't or shouldn't pedal. So just coming through a couple turns or something, grabbing a little breather, and then doing a lot of big punch accelerations. So like I said, there's almost no 0 watts on Zwift. So, and here goes a guy on a Tron bike really going for it. I'm going to try and keep it steady, but I'm not going to let him get away. So when that starts to feel, he's only got 1 second right now, but if that starts to get out of control, I'm going to try and get up there and get around him. But you can see the climb's flattening out now, so maybe there's a little bit more draft benefit to be had, so I want to make the most of that where I can get it. And then we're going right back into a steep ramp, so I'm hoping that maybe on this steep ramp here, having the super lightweight setup, yeah, and there's the guy with the disc bike and the 808 Super 9 combo and the bell helmet. I used my power up there on that last steep kick, just because I figure the steepest place is probably going to get you the most bang for your buck. I think the featherweight power up takes like 15 pounds off your weight virtually for 15 seconds, something like that. So we're hitting the flat here. I know I got to get on this guy's wheel. I got to get on and I got to stay on because there's a flat section and then it kicks back up. So I got to get to this wheel. So I'm in his draft right now, but he was still kind of going out, and he's chasing that guy on the Tron bike, which this is where he's going to have an advantage. So we got to keep the pressure on here. And the guy whose wheel I'm on, he's doing 5 watts plus a kilo, and I'm in his draft trying to just do the minimum I got to do to stay there, which is why this close the gap keeps going out to the maximum distance. But I'm not going to let myself fall outside of that draft. I'm going to stay there. And then I'm going to kick it up as we hit this steep part, and looks like everybody else is too. Yep, stand up, going as hard as I can pretty much here. I really want to get up to that guy, or at least get close enough that we can get there on the descent, because again, if he rolls away, that's the podium. So this is kind of the moment of truth right as it flattens out. You have got to get on before this spot. And if you're on, it's a lot easier to stay on, but if you're a few meters off, and I flip the camera around there and we are gone, everyone else has been dropped. So looks like we dropped 4, 5 guys on that, and gotta make sure I stay on here. Looked like that guy might have been letting the gap go out a little bit and just not monitoring it before this descent. Whoa, and we just went through his body and saw the inside of his eyeballs. That's a interesting feature of Zwift, I guess. So I'm back on. This is the group. We're racing for the podium. Um, Looks like we might have one guy dangling off the front there, but like I said, if we can get a good working group working together, you can go a lot faster on these descents working together. And it does look like he's one of the guys who was on the Tron bike. The other one was other Tron bike guy was dropped. So we got kind of a mix here. We've got like I'm on a lightweight setup. Looks like the guy in front of me right now is on a pretty lightweight setup. We've also got the guy on the full disc. So that's kind of a good sign for a group like this because we can go fast on the uphills and we can go fast on the downhills. I think we're also going to have like the most motivated people in this little group of four. So again, I'm not panicking about that one guy coming back. Generally, the last 5K of a race, people are going to start making their like desperation attacks, desperation plays, and that's probably going to bring this guy back naturally. Yeah, and it looks like that's happening. He's coming back slowly but surely. Looks like that group up the road has 40. Looks like Powell's has dropped the other guy, so 48 seconds and 40 seconds respectively, which is crazy given the pace we've been riding that they still have that much time on such a big group and such a group that's been going so hard. So we're back in the park. We're on the this punchy stuff, and we're kind of in the closing kilometers here. So I got two things I got to balance. One is really three things I got to balance. One is that I need to figure out how far out I want to sprint from, because I definitely want to sprint from this group. I don't want to try and go solo. Being the punchy rider that I am, and I don't think this finishes on a climb or anything, I want to leave it about 0.2 miles is what I've been doing. Generally, that seems to be the sweet spot for my sprint on Zwift. If I can go from 0.2 miles, I generally do pretty well. But I have my screen in Ks because I was, trying to manage the gap, manage the distance to the climbs based on Zwift's power, which has everything in Ks, so I swapped it over. So I'm realizing right now I'm not sure exactly how many meters that is. So I want to, on the phone on my bars, Google conversion of 0.2 miles into meters or kilometers, so I kind of know what my mark is. I also need to be paying attention and make sure that we don't get overhauled here, that somebody doesn't slip off the front with one of those desperation attacks. And the third thing is I need to save as much as I can. So that's the real balance, is don't let anyone get away, because people are going to try, but also don't waste energy just riding the front or patrolling the front or chasing things that are coming back anyway, because I am really it's weird to say since I'm 61 kilos or whatever, but I am the sprinter in this group. So I want it to be a field sprint. I don't have any delusions of chasing down the group that's up the road. And yep, here goes one of those cheeky attacks, we'll call it. This guy's trying to slip off the front on this little slight uphill drag. But again, not panicking. We're lined up. We're chasing. So I'm just going to try and stay in here. And yeah, I'm definitely on my phone Googling right now. And I think I figured it out. I've got my point, so I know how many kilometers to be looking for to sprint from, or meters. Got a little kick here, so I'm going to make sure to crank the power up and just not get caught out here. Got a little 10% kick. And it's honestly not the worst thing if I roll over in first wheel and then people have to slot around me. I would much rather be setting the tempo than following the tempo on some of these little kicks and make other people take it on the downhill. This is something I haven't talked about. So one function of the Tour for All jersey, putting everyone in the same jersey thing, is in a small group like this on the road, if you were skipping pulls and not ever hitting the front, not ever taking turns, people would probably get mad and try and drop you, or try and force you to take turns one way or the other, try and take you off the back. everyone being in the same jersey makes it a lot harder to keep track of who's who and who's pulling and who's not pulling. Same with the mechanics of Zwift, where you're not really rotating through smoothly. It's kind of, a blob, and you're kind of phasing through and around, and it's not an organized pace line. So I'm using that to my advantage now that we're down to just 5 guys in this group. I'm going to use that to try and stay off the front as much as possible, which I've been doing all day, but it gets harder the less people there are, the more chance there is that someone's going to notice that you're not ever hitting the wind. So I'm taking that into account here, and just trying to stay on. So we're really in the last couple Ks here. I want to say there's at least one more sneaky little attack, someone who does not want a field sprint, say field sprint, I mean reduced field sprint, it's 5 guys. But someone who doesn't want to sprint at all, someone who wants to go solo to the line. We'll see. I'm watching everybody's numbers to see when that happens. I want to say somebody went right around 2-3K to go and tried to stick one. I'm super happy to be rolling at 180 something watts. Honestly, the slower we roll from here to the line and the more of an acceleration it is, the better it is for me. So if I can get this heart rate down a little bit more and maybe come from a lower speed, crank it up quickly, that's exactly what I want. So I'm not going to try to push this pace at all. I'm just going to hang out here. And this is the final adjustments before the sprint. This is like when guys reach down and click their BOA dials or whatever. Here we go. That guy's 8.5 watts a kilo, hitting his feather power up. I think he probably left it a little too late on that. But this is his desperation attack, last ditch attempt to get away. And not bad, but it's probably too close to the line for us to let it go. And I know that we've got a really motivated group here. Luckily for me, these 2 guys are keen to chase it back, so I'm just going to sit on their wheels and, again, not panic, do as little as I have to do to stay in this group. And that's honestly good for me because that guy is going to be burned in the sprint now. We're within the last couple of kilometers, and he just put down a huge effort. I mean, 8-9 watts a kilo, that's probably close to his max sprint. So you can't really do that twice in a row in the span of a couple minutes. So now's the point where I have to start balancing, sort of watching that blue number in the top right. It's a 1.8 km right now. I forget what my exact calculation was, but I definitely had a number I was looking for up there that I wanted to make sure that's where I'll pop my arrow. You'll also notice I've been hanging on to this arrow power up, which thankfully got the arrow. This would have been a thing where if I'd gotten it earlier in the day, I probably would have just hung on to it all day. My strategy for anything that might come down to a sprint is always to get an arrow and then hang on to it, because I do have a pretty good pop, but I'm also a small guy, so my raw watts are not particularly crazy. And if it's a long drag race, the arrow is going to be the only way I'm going to take it. And really, I haven't needed any power-ups to stay in. I used that feather earlier on, and that definitely helped on that climb. That was super hard, but I think it could have stayed in without the feather. It was just nice to have. So that's really the 2 functions of the power-ups, is either to stay in a group that's losing you or to use it to win the race. And I've decided I'm using this arrow to win the race, and we're inside the last K. We got the traditional kind of cat and mouse game here. I think we've all realized we're not going to catch the guys up the road. They're probably finished already. And we're definitely in it for a sprint. And it's just who wants to. Yep. So I'm seeing that guy's avatar standing up, and I'm just going to start to patrol the front. I see those red numbers coming from the back there, and I'm getting ready. I'm starting to wind it up, and he's gone way early, like 6 0.6K out. I'm not gonna let that go away. So I'm still in his draft, even if it doesn't look like I am, and I'm just doing what I got to do to stay in the draft here and back it off. And then here we go, 250 meters to go. Not even looking at the screen, just aero boost, all in. Looks like I hit 13 watts a kilo there for a second. Now I'm looking at the screen, I know I'm home free. Got it, perfectly timed aero boost, ran out at the line. Very happy with that. So the results sheet's kind of hard to read here, but it looks like it has me third. Zwift Power has me second, so I don't know if maybe this first guy got relegated. I don't know, but kudos to Powell's if he didn't get relegated and that was legit power. He was smashing that whole time. So yeah, this was a great course for me. Good race, good ride, fun stuff. And I guess I'm gonna cut it off here because my face is phasing through. And so I switched to the TT bike here and then finish some more of that parlay speed mission while I cool down. That's it for this one. I'll probably do the other 2 stages of Tour for All. I don't know if I'll get good videos. We'll see. Like and subscribe, I guess. Later.